What's up guys, welcome to another super windy video. Today's episode is going to be all about 5 mistakes that beginner photographers make and how to not make them. I'm going to use the drift method. Freaking incredible. Round F16 for that to get that sunburst. Alright, so I'm going to do my best to try to keep these concise because each one of these rules I feel like I probably could and maybe have done an entire episode on or will do in the future. But let's get right into it. So, numero uno. Get this thing out of auto. You know what's funny is Brittany and I didn't even know how to put this into auto because I don't think any one of my cameras has ever been into auto. So this was the first time and we're doing it for you guys because we love you. So why would I say get out of auto? Well, for one, you're never gonna get any better at photography unless you learn the principles of photography and you learn how to use your camera outside of auto. Number two, and this is the most important one, this is not the second part, this is the second part of the first numero uno, getting out of auto. And the second reason for that is because your camera is kind of stupid. Like, I know that we have fancy cameras, you know, I got a $6,000 1DX2 over there and a 5D4, and you know what though? Like, they're still kind of stupid. They don't know what I'm doing. And your camera doesn't always know what you're doing. It doesn't always know what you're metering for. It doesn't always know what you're subject for. It doesn't always know what you're intending to get out of a shot. So that's why I say shoot with intent. And to shoot with intent, you need to be out of auto mode. And that, I'm not saying go fully manual. You don't need to do that either. I recommend it. But, you know, if you're beginning and you want to move it on up, there are other modes, you know, aperture priority mode if you want to focus on portraits, you know, shutter priority mode if you want to focus on action and wildlife and that kind of stuff. Those will help you. You set the parameter that you want to set and the camera will help you, but at least you'll be shooting with intent. And then in manual, of course, you'll be shooting, controlling everything. So that's not to say that auto can't do a good job. And it's designed to, and the cameras, they try to do their best, but it's really hit or miss, especially because of intent. So to help show you guys this, we took a couple of portraits, and here's the first one that we took in fully auto, and we took that in the sun, having me backlit, so the sun is behind me, and Brittany's shooting basically into the sun. It's a little bit overexposed, but it's not bad, and this is one of the examples where, okay, you could deal with this. But then we put it in manual and we decided what we wanted the settings to be, and here's our image, and that's a lot better. The second scenario where we took these portraits is I stood in a little bit of shade, and so the rest of this area is quite bright, but I stood in the shade of a tree, and now the auto, you can tell, is way overexposed. And again, we put this in auto, we let it choose everything, and it's just way overexposed. So now we switch to manual and we control that, and we have a much better looking image. Okay, so one last reason, there's probably more reasons that I could get into and make a whole nother episode out of this, but one last reason that I really want to hit on, because I'm a big proponent of this, for getting out of auto, is the shutter button right here. So by default, your camera uses the shutter button for the autofocus, meaning that when you hold the shutter button down, it's going to also autofocus when you half press it. That's normal for pretty much every camera out there. But if you want to get better at photography and you want to have better control of your autofocus and all of that kind of stuff, then you can do something that's called back button focusing, which is what I do. And if you don't know about that and you want to learn more, I have a video about that right here to show you how to set it up and why it's beneficial. I'm not going to go into that, but suffice it to say that if you're in auto mode, this kind of makes sense that you wouldn't have the ability to customize your shutter button because you're letting the camera do everything itself, and that's how it's basically designed for. Even if you've already set that, like I have, that's the first thing I do with any camera I buy is I set it up for back button focusing. And like I told you before, Brittany and I have never shot in auto mode with any of these cameras. We didn't know. Like, she took a picture of me and she freaked out because she said the back button focus wasn't working. And it took me a second to realize, oh, it's because it's in auto mode. Of course it wouldn't work. They reset everything to how the manufacturer and the camera needs it. Number 2, weird compositions. This one is a huge one. Like I said before, if you guys follow my channel, if you follow my Instagram, if you follow anything, if you haven't, then you should. But if you already have, then you know I'm a huge proponent of like the two biggest things in photography. If you take nothing else away from anything, learn composition and learn lighting. If you have good composition and lighting, your picture will be amazing. You will win no matter what. It doesn't matter what gear you have, but if you have those two things, you are much higher on the happiness level for amazing imagery than without them. So weird compositions. I can and I will go into compositions in much more depth, and I probably have in other videos. But let's do a crash course for composition real quick. There are some guidelines, and of course all of these can be broken. However, it's good to know them and follow them for most of the time. The first one, rule of thirds. That's simple. There's an option in your camera, if you don't know or you're not comfortable with seeing it, to turn the grid on. And you can even do this with your cell phones. You can have it to where the grid turns on and you're seeing things in however you want, and it'll show you the thirds. So the first thing with composition and turning the grid on and the rule of thirds is, my biggest pet peeve is horizon lines. Please, for the love of all things straight, do not have crooked horizon lines. It drives people nuts. It's so easy to fix no matter what you're using. If you're on a phone, if you're in Photoshop, if you're on your camera, it's so easy to fix. If you're gonna do the Dutch tilt, do it with intent. Don't just... that just drives me insane. See, I need to just like do some meditation real quick, because crooked horizons just... What I'm trying to say here, folks, straighten your horizons. That's all I'm asking, okay? Okay, another point with the horizons, now that they're straight, is where are you gonna put them? Half and half, not cool. Usually, not cool. There are, again, ways that you can break that, or reasons why you might want to break that, but for a general guideline, you want to put your horizon on the lower third or the top third. And that depends on what's going on in the image, how much sky you have, if there's anything interesting in the sky, how much foreground you have, all that kind of stuff. But suffice it to say, just think about where you're putting that horizon line and make sure it's straight. So if you're shooting portraits too, composition and rule of thirds and all that stuff still applies, and it's very important. It's very nice to have your subject in or on a third. It's also important to think about which way they're looking, in or out of the frame. If they're close to the edge of the frame, don't have them looking out of that edge that they're close to. Psychologically, that's wonky. All right, so the last thing about composition is be mindful of what's in the frame. If you've got like two different subjects, especially even if it's one, like one in the foreground, one in the background, it's kind of cool to line them up and put one on one third, one on another third. So just pay attention to what's in the framing. Like, look at the way that we've got this entire shot framed. If Brittany zooms out right now, then what you're gonna start seeing is some wonky stuff. So there is a statue of Colonel Greaves right here, and he's doing some weird stuff, and you know, he's not the subject of this video, I am. So I don't want him in my frame, and that's part of composition. Picking your focal length is part of composition. So now we're zoomed in again, and I'm the focus of the video again, and Corporal Greaves is not sticking his foot into my video. All right, so I'm gonna stop myself there with the composition. Like I said, I could keep going on and on about this and teach entire classes on it, but I gotta stop because you all need 3 more tips. All right, tip number 3. That's German for 3. Background separation. Subject background separation. This is a huge thing, and this is one of the most common mistakes that I see people do, especially when they're taking portraits. It applies to a lot of different things, but mostly portraits. So if you look at this image here, it's just a regular image of me leaning up against this house, and there's this nice railing and stuff, and it might make for a cool background. However, when you put your subject right up against that background, then you're losing that subject separation and it's starting to look weird. So if you move your subject forward and get them away from that background, so now I'm about 15 feet in front of this background now, and I'm not right up against it. The background is still there, but now we're getting a little more compression, even though we haven't changed anything other than my position. So the background is looking a little more blurry, and I am separated from the background, me being the subject in this image, and it just looks that much better. So real quick, I also want to mention You've heard me mention focal length and compression. If you don't know about that and you want to learn, there's some other great portrait tips and just photography tips in general about focal length and compression. You can check that out. I did a whole video on that right here, and that will definitely up your photography game even more. Okay, so the last thing about background separation, another way that you can control this is pay attention to your aperture. So here is just a regular shot. If you were to put your camera in auto, there is a possibility, depending on the lighting and everything, what it thinks, it might do something like f16 like this is here, and you have everything in focus. So you can see me in focus, and you can see all of these trees back here, which are kind of cool, but I don't necessarily want you to see them. I want your eyes to be pushed towards me, and then you can see his houses over here, and everything all the way back is sharp. But for portraits, I want just me. So how do we fix that? Well, we change the aperture. So we drop it down to, in my case, I dropped it down to, opened it up to 2.8, which is the fastest that this lens can go. So it doesn't matter if you have a 2.8 or a 1.4 or 1.8 or an f4 or an f5.6. The point is, get it as wide open as you can, as big of an aperture as you can. Real quick, if you want to learn more about aperture, I did an entire video about aperture. You can check that out right here. That will be very handy for this kind of stuff. But suffice it to say that when I change my aperture and I open it up to 2.8, I'm changing the amount of depth of field that is there, and I'm decreasing the amount of depth of field. So now I am the only thing in focus, and all of that background is still there, and it still looks beautiful, but now it's beautifully blurred. All right, number 4. This is probably my favorite one because it's my favorite aspect of photography. This is one of the most important things of photography, and that's lighting. So again, this is going to be more of a crash course because lighting could take a whole lifetime to master. But the important thing is that you need to think about your light source. How big is it? Where is it? How far is it from your subject? What time of day is it? Where is your subject pointing? Are you shooting behind the sun or in front of the sun? Or is the sun to your side? Do you have reflectors? Do you have a flash? There's so much about lighting, and it can get extremely complicated, but it doesn't have to right now. So beginning photography, you're just out and about snapping pics. You know, you want to get the best picture that you can. Think about where your light source is, and think about the quality of the light source. Is it hard or is it soft? And by that I mean this light that's on me right now is coming from that giant New Mexico sun, and there's no clouds because this is New Mexico and I never get clouds. So it is very harsh light. So if I take my glasses off, I am squinting very badly, and that is harsh, and that is bad. And if you were to shoot me like this, that's wonky. And if I'm turned and I'm just partly in the shade, then you're going to have super dark and super bright, and your camera's dynamic range is not going to play well with that. So now that I can see again, in the case of portraits outdoors, if you want to take a nice portrait and you're outdoors and it's super bright outside, turn them away and have them, you shoot towards the sun, have their back to the sun. That will make sure that they're not squinting and that the light on their face is soft. The only downside of that is you're going to have to overexpose probably to get them metered right, but that's okay. Overexposing when you're doing a portrait like that is generally okay. That's stylistic, that's fine. You want your subject to be exposed nicely. If you're doing wildlife, same thing. Shooting pictures of birds, I have a whole video on that. You can check that out about how to shoot wildlife in backlit scenarios. But the principle is you're going to need to overexpose so that you can see your subject. So if you're not shooting a portrait and you're shooting landscapes or something like that, the light is equally important. You need to decide, you know, most photographers like to go out during sunrise, during sunset, during blue hour, when the light has the chance of being really soft and colorful and all that stuff. But that's not to say that you can't do landscapes during the daytime. Just think about, if the light is super harsh, consider doing a black and white, or consider doing something where the shadows are part of the composition and really help with that play. Because even though it's super bright and super harsh outside, those shadows and that dichotomy between the light and dark can help your composition. All right, so I need to stop myself there because I'm about to go on an entire 3-hour lighting YouTube video. And Brittany really does not want to stand behind the camera for that long. I'm being shushed. All right, so I know that I just said that the last point was my favorite, but number go, which is Japanese for 5, is actually my favorite thing. like really. And this is also the most important thing ever, period. If you learn nothing else, if you don't take away anything else that I just said, learn how to edit. I don't care if it's on a cell phone. I don't care if it's with a free program that came with your camera. I don't care if it's with Photoshop or Lightroom. There are a ton of options that are either free or cheap. And in this day and age, shooting digitally, there is no excuse not to edit. It is the most important thing. And with editing, you can potentially fix 99% of the things that go wrong. And I'm not saying that's an excuse to not get it right in camera, but I'm saying that your pictures, your imagery, and everyone staring at your imagery will thank you if you edit them. And editing can be basic. I'm not telling you to go full-blown 2-hour-long Photoshop, you know, like I do with my fantasy stuff. But what I'm saying is editing can be as simple as fixing your horizon lines. That is considered editing. And if that's all you do to an image and that's all it needed to be fixed, then there it is. That makes me super happy. You just corrected that tiny little thing. It could also be upping the contrast or the saturation or dropping your highlights. Just tiny little sliders that you can do in Snapseed on your phone, or that you can do on Capture One or Photoshop or anything like that, Lightroom, any of these things on your computer. The other reason that I really harp on editing, on learning editing, is because the more you edit photos, the more you start to think about the next time you take a picture, oh, what could I do before I take this shot? Like, how it will help you be a better photographer. It will help you compose better. It will help you light better. It will help you think about how to take a better image, because you're going to start thinking about what you're going to be doing to that image in post. And that is a wonderful way to think, and that will just help you all around by pushing your creativity. And then, of course, the biggest thing is that all cameras have limitations. No camera is going to be able to capture the dynamic range that we can see or that we want in our image. Everything's going to have limitations. So even if it's just being able to do stuff like drop your highlights, boost your shadows to help you get a little bit more dynamic range than your camera could have done, that kind of thing. So bottom line, again, editing is super important. I have tons of videos on editing, and I will continue to put lots more videos on editing out in a bunch of different ways. So I'm gonna leave it there. Those are my 5 tips. Hopefully you're not making those mistakes, or hopefully now you're conscious of that and it will help you elevate your photography, because that's what I'm here for. We all want to take better pictures, and I want to help you do that. So if you have any questions about anything that I went over in the video or didn't go over, or you have any beginner mistakes that you know of that I didn't go over, leave those in the comments below and help out everybody else in the community, because that's what this is about. I'd love to hear what you guys think. I want to hear your comments, even though your comments don't really talk to me. That's really weird. I'd love to read your comments too. All right, I got to wrap it up. We're done here. I've got birds to chase. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I've got new videos every Tuesday and Friday. Hit that like button if this video helped you out. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next episode.